Hey, welcome back to another edition of Telescope Man. Today, I'm going to do a little ham radio presentation for you, and show you a little bit about one of the digital modes of ham radio called PSK 31. So, before we start, let me show you some of the equipment that you need in order to do PSK 31. Of course, you're going to have a general license from the FCC to be able to get on some of these high frequency bands, like 20 meters is what I'm on right now. And I'm on a specific frequency, 14.070. Say that again, 14.070. Now there's some other bands, particular frequencies where hams go to transmit the PSK 31 and other digital modes. So there's numerous bands. So rather than me trying to run through a list, all you really need to do is just Google something like ham radio, digital frequencies most used, or something like that, and you'll get several hits that give you the frequencies that where hams hang out to do digital communications. So I'm on 14.070 right now, which is a 20 meter frequency. And there's usually lots of hams here during the day and into the evening transmitting digital signals on PSK 31 and also on some other digital modes. So let me see if I can get you to hear what it sounds like. Hear that kind of a warbling sound in the background? That's actually the digital signals coming through. One of the first things you're going to have to do to intercept these signals is you're going to have to download some free software. Ham Radio Deluxe does have digital modes, so you can use Ham Radio Deluxe. There's another one out there that simply does digital called DigiPan, and I kind of prefer that because that's all it does. It's just a very simple program that does digital communications. There are other ones out there, but I'm going to show you DigiPan today. So, okay, I've zoomed in on the screen now, and we've got several conversations going on right now. Each one of these lines of text represents a different transmission frequency. Now the neat thing about it is you don't really retune the radio at all. You don't touch it. You leave it on that particular frequency, which is 14.070. And once you click one of these, the computer adjusts the frequency to match that other ham's frequency. So let's see if we can pick somebody out here. Okay, here's one. All right, down here you can see a little waterfall display. That's what that's called, a waterfall display. And the lines represent different signals coming in. Now if you'll Google PSK 31, you'll hit some really good sites that teach you how to read this waterfall display. Each one of the digital modes makes a unique signature on this waterfall display. So once you get familiar with them, you can tell by the signature on the waterfall what type of line it's drawing, what digital mode they're using, just by the picture on the screen. Obviously, solid lines indicate a stronger signal than this real weak signal that you can barely pick up over here on the left-hand part of the screen. It's a very weak signal. You may not get any copy off of it. But these stronger signals, and let me click one right here, okay, and you can see CQ, CQ, CQ. He's calling CQ, and now he's giving us his call sign, WA7BFN, WA7BFN, and he's basically looking for somebody to talk to. So I am on his frequency right now because I clicked it. So if I was to start typing in this little box down here, a message back, and then press transmit, I would send him the message across the radio, okay, and he would receive it and decode it using this software. It's really a neat way to communicate. It's like text messaging over RF radio. So pretty cool. It doesn't require a lot of power. In fact, it's bad form to use a lot of power, because when you do, you scatter your frequency across the bandwidth here, and you basically interrupt all the other communications that are going on. In other words, QRM, there's a lot of interference. Okay, so you interrupt everybody's conversation if you transmit with too much signal strength, okay? So I usually stick around 30, 35 watts, regardless of who I'm trying to talk to. And that gives me a real pretty waterfall display. You can see this, and I'm hoping you can see this. This fella right here, he's scattering a lot of signal off over on the side bands of the main signal, okay? He's scattering a bunch of his signal across, and he's creating interference. So if I wanted to transmit right here on the waterfall, he would be interfering with me every time he keyed up. So what I usually do to transmit, I'll pick a spot on the waterfall where there's very little interference or QRM, and that's where I'll call CQ. On a part of the waterfall where there's very little transmission activity or interference. Now, sometimes on weekends you can't find that spot because there's so many people on it that, you know, basically the entire waterfall is covered up. And there's always a few people that don't know they don't need to use a lot of power when they transmit, and they're transmitting at, some of them I suspect, using linear amplifiers, you know, and they're basically creating a lot of interference for everybody else that's on the band. So it's a very unique mode in ham radio. And as you can see, it's still decoding while we've been talking, and there's probably 4 or 5 conversations going on here, you know, where people are making contact and basically giving a signal report, and where they're located, their QTH, and they exchange some information and then probably send each other a QSL card of some type, or at least log it into a logging program that they have made contact. But it's a good way to make long distance contacts with very little power, and you know, international contacts with very little power. So I encourage you to look up PSK 31 and learn about it. The other thing I would encourage you, and I didn't show you this, behind this little radio is a USB device called Signal Link, and it's basically a sound card. This is a sound card. Yes, the computer has one, but I'm actually using a separate sound card with its own receive and transmit audios on it. So it's makes it a little easier to get your waterfall display to read properly. A little easier to do that. These are not very expensive. I think I paid $89 for this signal link. You will need the proper cable coming from the radio, and every radio has a specific digital cable that it uses, and you're going to need that cable to get the radio to talk to the computer. With that said, I wish you 73s and clear skies. And remember, you should keep looking up to see the greatest show on earth right over your head every single night. And remember, ham radio is a big part of the hobby of astronomy. So if you haven't investigated becoming a ham, I'd encourage you to do so, and maybe get involved in satellite communications, tracking satellites and communicating through some of the amateur radio satellites that are up there, and investigating radio astronomy. See you all later.